That revival come.
Hey!
Revival come. Revival.
I want you to understand that once upon a time, the Lord encountered me. And the Lord said, if I put what he said in human time, if you say it as slowly as possible, it will be 9 seconds. He said, the youth. He said it 4 times. He said, use your power of sight to deliver them from distraction, and I will open the gates of nations to you. That was December 2009 that Jesus said this. When Jesus said that to me in December 2009, then I was working in the petroleum industry. That was when I received the first mandate. You know, an apostle is a sent one. Don't claim you're an apostle if Jesus has not sent you. It's not a title. It's a sent one. One that is multi-gifted, whose life is summed up in the fact that there is a message he is sent to bear. That's what Elijah was. The Tishbite. Tishbite means messenger. So Elijah is a description of an apostle. You don't have the honors that accompany that function if Jesus himself has not sent you. Right? So the first errand Jesus was sending me was to the youth of my generation. And that, meanwhile, I was a preacher a long time before 2009. In fact, I started preaching formally in 1994. Were you born then? You were born in 1994? How old were you then? You were 2 years. Okay. I went to Bible school then. That was the year I went to Bible school. So I was a preacher. I was a teacher. I was a teacher of the Word of God. And I was in the office of the teacher for a very long time until Jesus sent me. The moment Jesus sends you, he gives you authority. There must be an evidence that you are going to present that you were sent. So the economy of the grace of God on your life is bound to shift if Jesus sends you. So Jesus encountered me and commissioned me to go to the mission field of the youth of my generation. Then I was working in the oil industry. And because the presence of God that accompanied that encounter that I had was so palpable, when I came back from that trip, I drew up a budget because I used to pay for my tickets in January. All my flight tickets, I pay for them in January. So I used to take like how many flights a year. Those days I used to keep the boarding passes just to be able to count how many trips I did, until they became a burden in my apartment in Lagos. So I used to do flights for 1.7 million to 2.3 million annually. Can you imagine that? Okay, you can't imagine. Not today, I'm talking about years ago. So I hopped from campus to campus. Ahmadu Bello University, University of the one in Mina, Foot Mina, the one in Sokoto. What's the name of it? So I've gone round, not once. And in the process, I went around Nigeria about 6 times. The reason why I was doing what I was doing, and people were saying that I was a fool, that I was going to involve myself with youth ministry and there's no money there. But you see, the issue was not about money, it was that Jesus spoke to me. And the proof that he spoke was the errand that I was running. Just like Simeon was waiting for the consolation of Israel because God had given him a promise that he was going to visit Israel in his generation, in his lifetime. So many people call me and say, oh, you are doing a great job. It's just that your mission is not sustainable. When you do ministry, the financial aspect must be in good shape so that you will know that there is some prospects attached to your labor. Meanwhile, Jesus didn't discuss financial issues. Jesus just came and gave an instruction. You see, you can allow that moment die and you are no longer incubating it in your heart. This man kept, I don't know for how long he kept that moment alive. But when we read about Prophetess Anne, you will see that that moment was more than 60 years. And for some of you here, God just spoke to you last year. And the word is no longer alive in your heart, because you have allowed circumstances and situations to become more real than what God had spoken into your heart. So your heart is no longer an incubator. So even though the potential of the encounter you had sustained a shelf life that can expand for 1,000 years if God so wishes, your womb became a grave for what was alive. So I kept doing that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, preaching here, go NCCF, I'll move here, move to campuses. I was doing what God sent me to do. Meanwhile, this work had started there. But in order for me to do that one faithfully, I had to hand over so that I could do that one. Now, is it reasonable in the current training we have as pastors today? Is there a provision for you to be in active pastoring and there's a congregation under you and you hand over? You are not old, you are not sick, you are not about to die. But you see, the reason why it is so is because there is a word that is alive inside. So I left the stage and I began to do the one he told me to do. Meanwhile, there was a time I was pastoring here and I felt so fulfilled. And then that instruction now came, and pastoring here was no longer as fulfilled as being on the field. So I had to do the needful to create an administrative system through which this one can be going and I can go about what the great one was asking me to do. All of those sacrifices that had to be put in place was because there was something alive in my heart. And from 2009, 12th of December, when I had that encounter, till 2019, that's 10 years, I was going the rounds. In 2019, on the 16th of August, I was in Uyo, just entering into the hotel that they booked for me for a meeting. And as I entered into the hotel, then Jesus now begins to speak again. That I have come to set you free, so that where I am, there also will my servant be. That's too vague. That kind of speaking is too vague. So I say, wait, where are you? That's the first question. Am I in bondage? What kind of bondage are you talking about? And all of them. So there are many. So if God speaks, don't claim you know what it means, and don't use your brain to interpret it. So the question was, where are you? So the great one now told me, did I not tell you that if you are faithful to the youth, I'll open the gates of the nations to you? As far as you are concerned, now I am in the nations. So what I want you to be freed from is your job, because you cannot hold that job and be jumping with me in the nations. So the jumping you did for 10 years was a training. But I didn't know then. But you know what? I did it with all my life. So I know I don't need to look back. There was nothing I didn't do for those 10 years. When the 10 years were accomplished, he now said it's on the field, in the nations, that I should go and resign. My job is a prison. Are you there? Something is living And the time he asked me to resign was the time. But you know what? I had seen the faithfulness of God. And I knew that what I had experienced with God was not the best that God could give me. So I didn't consider that job and the prospects that he had at the time that God was asking me to leave it to be anything compared with the glory that shall be revealed in us. So I put in my resignation on the 5th of October because Jesus said, where was he? In the nations. Something was living. It means that the shelf life of the first encounter was 10 years, but I didn't know. You're not with me. The shelf life was for 10 years. That first word. It was valid for 10 years. Today now, like in Wadata, next month, the youth of one church invited me to come and do night vigil with them. Night vigil. Power, is it power night or something? It's a good invitation. But I don't have to, you know. They said you come and for power. The youth, they want power. If it was a few years ago, that would have been on the front burner. You're not with me. But now they are wrong. If they want power night, they should come and call Pastor Tony. He has enough power for them for all the night. Do you understand? Now, you see, you are not understanding me. What you are hearing is that I'm saying that I'm a big preacher. No, you are not getting it. I am not above power night. But in my current emphasis, power night is not a priority. So I can avoid it. Because staying with my wife that night is more important than that power night. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Because the emphasis has shifted and I'm incubating something else now. I was invited to a place that every young preacher will feel is promotion for you to be invited to. And I told them, sorry, I can't come. They changed the date. I said, even this one is worse. This new date is worse. You know why? The emphasis for my life is not to be, that is not the emphasis. You see, if we look at your life and we know that there is something that you are incubating, we will see we will know it with your convictions, your lifestyle. That man was waiting for 60 years for the consolation of Israel. If you don't know what is his driving force, you will say God has imprisoned him. God has dealt with this one. For 60 years, he needs to come again and again to the temple to see if that monarch that was spoken about will be brought in for dedication. And then you look at him and say, this is a mental disorder. And the guy is not concerned about the name. You call him, there is something he's incubating. And it is until God accomplishes that which he has spoken to him that the shelf life, the energy that word gives will now be taken away. It will dissipate. Meanwhile, just so that you know, he say a day with God is like what? 1,000. I say, I'm in the nations. It's all right. And you know, he never told me that I will need to be calling people to do programs for me. Say, I will open the gates for you. So, we didn't link anything, we didn't do anything. Just from this place, all over the world. By himself.
That revival come.
Hey!
Revival come. Revival come.